Hey y'all, what's up? I know it has been a minute and I am here to tell you why. This is actually some good, some bad, and I guess a little bit of ugly news. And I've been kind of avoiding this. I was supposed to record this podcast probably a couple days ago, a week ago, but honestly, I just needed time to kind of like come and discuss and to explain what's going on. So, as always, we're humble, open, transparent here on Confessions of a Young Adult's Life. And I just wanted to start this off by saying thank you all for the years of support and for continuing to listen, even when I've been taking longer breaks than normal. Um, because, yeah, I have been dealing with some health issues. And so I just wanted to kind of come on and let you all know that this is actually the final episode of Confessions of a Young Adult's Life. And here's why. So, to be honest, over the last 4 to 5 years, I've been noticing some changes in my body that have been happening over a course of time. And I have not really necessarily gone to check them out like I should. So I do highly recommend. I am advocating for you if you feel like something is happening, something's up. Please go see a doctor. Please go see a healthcare professional to get those things checked out. So what I've been doing is pretty much avoiding. Yeah, I've been kind of avoiding not going to see a doctor. I haven't. The last time I went to see a doctor was like 2018, and that's not me bragging or anything. That's just me being honest. And part of the reason why I didn't go see a doctor is because all my life I've had like a love hate relationship with the healthcare system, because I'm a plus size person, and as a result of me being a plus size person, there is automatically this assumption that something was wrong with me. Each and every time I went into the doctor, and then as I've gotten older and I've gotten better jobs, I had better health insurance, and so some doctors see that as money and means to do whatever they want to do, which is sort of kind of some of the issues that I had experienced in 2018, the last time I went to see a doctor. And the doctor kind of like started milking my insurance. During that time period, I really had not had any major like health complications, any health concerns. Like I was pretty active person and things of that nature. Yes, I had slowed down a little bit more than what I would traditionally do, but I was still relatively healthy. But now, you know, some of those things have now caught up with me, basically. So I really feel like, as I've gotten into my current diagnosis, which I am going to let you all know what's happening, that uh, I really was just like, I was shocked. I was also embarrassed, but I also, take full responsibility of my part that I've played in just thinking that I could not, I could take a back seat in regards to making sure that I was the healthiest version of myself. Um, as a person, I've always been trying to take care of and to think about other people before me, and I've always kind of like sort of bragged on having like maybe a high pain tolerance or whatever. And to be honest, that is never anything to really brag about when you think about it. Like as I've been processing what's currently going on in my life, I'm like, that's really not nothing to brag about. It really is just you prolonging the neglect of taking care of yourself. I know we're in this, season, and we're in the forefront of a movement of making sure that self care is practiced in every aspect of our life. We're in this soft girl era where we're prioritizing ourselves, we're creating healthy boundaries, we're doing all of these different things. But what does that really look like for someone who is used to giving out and not necessarily always, not necessarily receiving? And for me, to be honest, I have always just kind of like pushed through anytime that I've had any type of sickness or disease or anything. I've kind of just like pushed through and did what I needed to do to make sure that, I got done whatever it is that I've, dedicated myself to. So as a result, health issues and things of that nature, or anything that has ever come up for me has always kind of like been secondary. But this was a situation that could no longer be secondary, because literally my life was in danger. So in January of this year, I started to experience like some serious, like, life or death type symptoms. And I was just like, I had never been this sick ever. I've always been very aware of my body and like things that are happening in it. But this time, for the first time in my life, I just did not know what was going on. Like, I was just not well. I didn't feel good. My stomach was hurting. I was constipated all the time. Like, I just felt sick. Like, I couldn't eat or any of those things. Like, my body was just, it felt like my body was literally giving up on me, right? And it was taking me a while to it took me a while to decide to go to the doctor. Like, also, our healthcare system, when you're trying to get in with a doctor, it can be not very easy to try to get in with a doctor because of just everybody's backed up everywhere. And then we're still like maybe 1 year, 2 years post COVID, even though COVID is still here and alive and well and still affecting people on a daily basis. But we're kind of sort of far enough away from COVID to where now we're just all trying to get back to what this sense of normalcy or whatever. And so anyway, I it also speaks to just like the financial burden that happens in regards to like people, not only just people of color, but people who are impoverished and everything. Like, when you have insurance but you still have to pay so much out of pocket, it's very hard for you to want to go to the doctor because you're concerned about like bills, you're concerned about um just in general, like how things will happen, how to maneuver through that. And so for me, the big issue was just taking on another financial burden. Like, and so that was also part of the reason why I was kind of like neglecting myself, because each and every time I go to the doctor, I come out of there with a bill, and now that's extra stress added on to me trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay this bill, that because I had to go, see a healthcare professional. So, like I said, I would participate in a lot of like avoidant type behavior simply because I just didn't want the bill. And that is not good for someone who is now starting to experience some significant health issues or concerns. And so in January, I just noticed that my body was starting to feel like terrible. I could barely eat. I really was just like not being able to like keep anything down. I was nauseous. My head was spinning. I literally thought that I was experiencing like some form of like an anxiety attack, panic attack, or maybe that I was having some type of like heart attack or stroke. And I remember when that started happening, and I remember saying like, I don't want to die like this. Like, what's going on with my body? And so I finally just was like, you need to stop neglecting yourself and you need to go to the doctor. So I made a doctor's appointment. And I was also still kind of like during the beginning of this year still processing like grief and things of that nature. I had a whole lot of other things going on with like my living situation. It was just a lot happening at one time while I was also still trying to do this podcast and do my other podcast, and then also like be an influencer on social media, quote unquote, and like also take care of my full-time job and my business. All of these different things were just, it was a lot happening at one time. And so I really was having a tough time like getting started, like getting momentum at the beginning of this year. That was the first time in my life I really had gone through like, that was the deepest. You all are not unfamiliar of me dealing with depression and anxiety. Here I talk about it in my book. I've talked about it on this podcast. But for the first time in my life, that was the like I felt like I was in like a really deep functional depression. I had was dealing with very high stress on the job and outside of the job, and on top of my physical body being sick and me having to go to work every day because I have to take care of myself. So, March or April finally comes around and I get an appointment with the doctor. In my mind's eye, just based off of the symptoms that I was having, I had already assumed that maybe I was dealing with like diabetes. And I was just like, I think these are symptoms of someone who is diabetic, right? And just from basically having to deal with healthcare, having to grow up and deal with and be in a family with people who have, dealt with type 2 diabetes. And I was just like, these symptoms that I'm having, like a couple months in, I was like, I feel like I might be diabetic. And part of the reason why I kind of felt like I was diabetic is because I started to lose weight rapidly. So I literally dropped within like the first 2 to 3 months of the year, maybe 4 months, I dropped about 65 pounds, right? And so I just was like, something's not right. I need to go and see about this. So got into the doctor's appointment, set up with the primary care. I let her know what was happening, what was going on with my body. And then she was like, okay, cool. This will be when you take your wellness exam later on this year. But of course, we need you to go take some blood work before you get your wellness exam. Because here in Pennsylvania, the labs are separate from most of them. The labs are separate from the actual doctor's office. So you have to go to an actual lab to go get your lab work done, and then they send that information back to the doctor. Again, another bill. So they sent my lab work over. Like I was like, okay, I need to go get this done 2 weeks before I go, get my doctor's appointment. And so I had started to feel good. And I would like to say that, doing this fitness challenge with my church started back in April is when I started to experience my health coming back in a way that was functional and healthy for me. So I would like to say that fitness challenge definitely saved my life because I was legit had been wanting to get back into fitness, but I just was having a hard time like getting back to that consistency and stuff like that. But then this health challenge happened in my church in April, and I was like, I'm going to sign up for this. I'm going to do this. I just felt like an inner prompting to begin to physically take care of myself more and move my body because I just was like, I cannot continue to live this way. I can't be promoting and praying and encouraging other people to do these things, and then I'm not doing it myself. And so I started the health challenge in April. So by the time I made it to the doctor, I had started to kind of like feel better. So I don't know what my numbers looked like between January and March. It could have been, I know that it was terrible. It was bad. It was a bad situation. So, started doing this fitness challenge. It started off as an 8 week challenge. It increased to 12 weeks. But during that time, I was building my consistency with exercising, and I wasn't really changing the way that I ate per se. So I wasn't doing everything that I could do to really do a full 180 turn and change over my lifestyle. Again, there was that sense of pride there saying, I know how to take care of myself. I know how to control my diet. I can just do this exercise without also making other adjustments. Just talking about for me, how I was thinking at that time. Like I can do all of these different things without having to make too many adjustments. Even though I was making adjustments to my diet, but I was still kind of sort of eating what I wanted, how I wanted, while also doing this exercising at least 5 days out of a week, and then doing some walking or whatever on the weekends. But so I hadn't during that time really changed my diet, and it wasn't that there weren't resources available for me to be able to do that. It's just that I had made the decision that I wasn't going to do that part, which brings up another conversation of that I really recently dived into with myself in regards to punishing myself with food. And now that has been one of the other conversations that has come up as I continue to navigate through this new diagnosis. So, ended up going to the doctor, getting my labs done, and after I got those labs done, I started getting like phone calls from the doctor's office, and of course I'm at work, so I can't really necessarily answer phone calls like that. And then just like, oh, the doctor would like to see you, and I was just kind of like being very arrogant and belligerent and selfish about, like, I'll wait to see my primary care doctor. I don't want to talk to another doctor because I just can't afford the bill right now, and I don't want to do this, do that. I can read the results on my own, and I can wait. And so a whole bunch of foolishness. Like, pride will be the death of some of us if we let it. And that's literally what was going on with me. Like, I was about to let my pride and, literally my little faith, because I wasn't really trusting God to make sure that He supplied all my needs according to His riches and glory at the time. And I was like, I was being one of those Christians where, I know the concepts, I know what we say, but I'm really not putting these things into action. I'm going to just talk about me. Listen, I'm going to be honest about me. And so I was just like, I'll read the results and stuff myself, or I'm going to just wait. And so they kept calling me, and I was just like, I already told these people no. Why do they keep contacting me? So I was in a work meeting, and I I logged into like the lab results portal myself, and I started to look at my results because I was like, there's a reason why these people keep trying to like contact me and stuff like this, and what's the issue? So I went in, and I Google can be your friend when you need it. And so I went in, and I started to read the lab results, and I started to Google like what the different definitions and stuff mean. And so I'm in this meeting, and during this meeting, I am literally kind of starting to sit in and starting to like internalize the fact that what I thought was true was actually becoming my reality. And the reality is that I had type 2 diabetes. So and I'm getting a little emotional right now, but I just was like, it was such a like mind blowing. I was aware that that was possibly what was going on, but to actually get the full diagnosis that that was what was happening with me, like, threw me into an emotional loop. So I was just like, okay, I need to set up this meeting with this doctor. I need to stop being an idiot right now, because that's what you're being, and you need to prioritize yourself. So I set up the meeting with the doctor, and she starts telling me about the diagnosis. She starts telling me all these things. Now I'm literally not hearing what this lady is saying. I am just like a wreck. Like, that was like, if there ever was a worst day in my life, that day was the worst day emotionally for me in my life. Like, I could not get it together. I was a wreck. And so the lady told me, and she was talking, and she was telling me about the diagnosis. I was just not hearing her. I was in a tunnel. Like, I'm like, lady, I hear you talking, but I'm really not listening. And then I had to start going to the pharmacy to try to get what I needed. And by the way, for somebody who had just got a diagnosis, when I tell you that none of it went smooth, like from the initial onset of me trying to get what I needed to get, um, to just like from the getting the diagnosis to also trying to navigate the pharmacy to get what I needed to get, it was like just so overwhelming. Like, I had to go back and forth to the pharmacy. Luckily, it was on a Friday when I got the diagnosis, but I had to go back and forth to the pharmacy that entire weekend because I just did not have everything that I needed, from not having the needles to not having the strips for the glucose meter, all of these different things that you would think should go smoothly now after you've trying to deal with this new diagnosis just wasn't going. It just was not happening for me. And so yeah, I was very like, I was a mess that first day, and like anybody would be. And I just, I really felt bad for myself. Like, and I felt embarrassed, I felt shame, I felt all of these like negative emotions. And no offense to anybody who is type 2, Because I don't want you to think like, oh, she thinks she better than us. That's not the case. I think for me, it was just like to finally, after all of these years now, get this diagnosis that these people have been trying to like wish and put onto me for years, for it to now show up, and to just look at my life over the last year and how I was not prioritizing and taking care of myself. Like, I would say that this was probably the worst within this last year. This is probably the one of the years that the least amount of time that I was actually being healthy, that I was actually taking care of myself. I was like, I had got back into bad habits. Like, I was back eating out, eating more processed foods again. I had started back eating red meat. All these things that I had kind of set up. When I say punishing myself with food, because I literally have been, working a high stressful job for me, and I didn't realize that how the stress from maybe being at work was actually starting to affect my personal life. Um, then also I had some situations where I thought that I, was about to be in a relationship with somebody who I assumed would be my forever. That didn't work out, so that was added stress. I had stress with another friendship relationship, which was probably already at its end, and we should have never tried to revamp it in the first place, but I did attempt to try to do that. And I was really just I've been going through it for the last year. And so all of these things on top of, not eating healthy, pay a toll in me receiving, this diagnosis. And so I just have not been able to like do other things. And one of those other things happens to be this podcast. And I kind of knew that this podcast would eventually come to an end. I kind of have been feeling this for a little while now. I just didn't know, how. Again, I was avoiding. I didn't know how to end it in a way that, it made me feel good. But now I feel like I've gotten to a point where I can successfully just be like, okay, this era has come to an end. I feel like I've given you all a lot of content and things of that nature. And I won't necessarily take the episodes down, but I am saying goodbye in regards to Confessions of a Young Adult's Life. I think that it's time to like start sunsetting and closing chapters, um, because I just think that that's like, now I need to kind of like really focus on taking care of myself in a way that I just need to take a step back from, you know, continuing to pile on things and be busy and not being able to focus on the things that I need to focus on. So yeah, and I think that, I owed you all as an audience an explanation. So there's that. This is my first time announcing to the world that this is what's going on with me. This is what's happening. All my close friends and family, the people that I felt like needed to know knew. But I just, like I said, I just had to take a moment to say, yeah, that's where I am. Thank you all. I just want to say thank you all for the support from the onset, since the beginning of when I just didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know. I just started this on a whim because I needed an outlet to really kind of like unpack emotions and things, and where I was. And you all have been so supportive in regards to just allowing me to have this space, to even share this space with friends and family, in a way that I'll never forget. And so I am so appreciative of you, and I'm so appreciative of, this platform, making space for small creators to be able to come on and do what they need to do. So yeah, these are the promises that I can make for you all. I will consistently make sure that I prioritize my health and wellness. And because I literally, sorry, I legit, it ain't a confessions podcast if I don't flub over some words, but I legit could have died, like literally could have died. And now that I am just kind of like trying to figure that out, um, I recognize the severity and the the seriousness of taking care of myself. And so, yeah, you can still follow me. Like, I'm still on social media. I'm still on Instagram. Like, you can follow me at Stories with Bree. You can follow the Fruitful Poetic like pages on Instagram and Facebook. Uh, you can also follow the other podcast that I have, which is called Stories with Bree. That podcast is currently on a hiatus, but please expect season 4 to show up at some point. It probably won't be this year because I really need to take the rest of the year to kind of like just adjust my life to living with this new diagnosis, and then working very hard about reversing it. So the benefit of having type 2 diabetes is that it is fully reversible, which is something that I strive and thrive to do, is to make sure that I adjust my life to be able to reverse this diagnosis. And yeah, so I don't really have much else to say. I feel like I've said what I needed to say, and hopefully, you all understand. All I can ask for is that you continue to lift me up, um, definitely in prayer, and send energy my way, and just call my name out in your prayer closet wherever you are. I'm pretty sure I'm probably gonna get some text messages and maybe some phone calls, and once some of the people that have my personal information here's this episode. And so all I just ask is like, thank you so much for reaching out. Please, handle me with kindness. And yeah, feel free to reach out. It's fine. But also, yeah, thank you all for showing me so much love for 6 seasons. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens next. So have a most amazing time. I thank you so much for the support. And till next time, farewell to you all. I pray that you are taking care of yourself, and I pray that you're living in your love and your light, and that you're being fruitful, you're being poetic, and you're being a light to those around you. Love you all so much.